Hi guys, I welcome you all for second lecture on non-destructive testing of hardened concrete, which is on the concrete structures. So in the first class, we discussed on three non-destructive tests. So one is rebound hammer, ultrasonic pulse velocity, and cover meter. So these are the three tests so which we had a clear and detailed information on rebound hammer and ultrasonic pulse velocity and cover meter, right? So even we gone through a lot of videos on that. So let me start up with three more topics, okay, in this lecture. So one is half cell potential measurement test, core test, and a load test. Okay. So let me start up with the half cell potential meter test right away. So as we all know, like non-destructive tests are very important to do a forensic study on civil structures, right? And if you want to have an investigation on a failure of the structure and to go with a proper maintenance of the structure. So for all these, we required these kind of, non-destructive tests. Okay. So in that point of view, so we are going to discuss a few more topics. So we had a rigorous, you know, information and a discussion on those topics in the previous class. So now let's right away start with the potential half cell potential measurement test. The half cell potentiometer test, so which is essentially so consists of measurement of absolute potential at the concrete surface with a reference electrode. So what purpose we are going to use this half cell potentiometer test? So it is going to measure the reference electrode. Okay, so it's going to take a reference to the reference electrode to assess the corrosion rate and the corrosion status of the embedded rebar within the concrete structures. Okay, so that's the purpose how we go through these potentiometer test, right? So to assess the rate of corrosion. So for to assess the rate of corrosion, we are using some electrodes which are in a form of a reference. Okay, so let me talk in deep about this. So the most popular equipment used for the above test is Canon corrosion analyzer. So as we already know, there are precise equipment for each rebound hammer, ultrasonic pulse velocity, and all. In the same way, even for half cell potential measurement test, we are having a Canon corrosion analyzer, so which is again prepared by Prosik Switzerland. So this equipment consists of a digital millimeter, okay, and a voltmeter, and a copper to copper sulfate half cell. So these are the one which are going to assess the rate of corrosion of rebars which was placed in the concrete. Okay. So recently we gone through a lot of uh, you know webinars. So IIT Chennai is focusing mainly on the depth of cover, which is playing a vital role in controlling the corrosion of steel. Okay. So that chloride enters into concrete, which leads to corrosion of the rebar when you are not providing a proper, cover when you are casting a footing or a column or a beam or a slab, whatever it is. So majorly when it is exposed to water, so those structures are more lead to corrosion. Okay. So assessing the rate of corrosion is very important to have a proper maintenance of the structure. Okay. So whether we want to go for any anti-corrosion coatings for the steel or not, so based on the application, so that all we can able to know with this non-destructive test. So let me show you how this Canon corrosion analyzer looks like. So this is how the equipment looks. Okay. So it will assess the rate of corrosion. So the method of testing, how you are going to measure this rate of corrosion. So here the embedded rebar, okay, whatever the steel there in the concrete, it shall be cleaned with abrasive paper or wire brush to remove corrosion scales. So the rate of corrosion you can able to assess only by chipping the concrete surface, and you have to directly test it on the steel bar which is exposed to weather. Okay. So then only you can able to assess the rate of corrosion, right? So then after completion of this test, you can again plaster it, no issue. Okay. So but you have to go with embedded which is there in the concrete rebar. So it is to be cleaned with abrasive paper. Why? Because your steel will have a scales. Okay. So that's how you have to remove it, and then you have to go for the test. So concrete surface shall be cleaned thoroughly with a soft wire brush to remove the adhering calcium carbonated layers, so which are presented on the steel rebar. So which causes high electrical resistance during potential measurement. So that is the reason why they are asking us to remove the scales which are formed on the reinforced bar. So the concrete surface to be subjected to test, so which shall be kept wet uniformly before the commencement of the test. So by that, what it is supposed to, so your concrete surface to be subjected to test shall be kept wet uniformly. So your concrete surface should be wet when you are testing your rebar under measuring its what we call corrosion rate. Okay. So next, the negative terminal of the millivoltmeter is connected directly to the embedded rebar by means of a crocodile clip. So let me show you a small video how the half cell potential meter measurement equipment is going to use. Okay, how this millivoltmeter is going to be connected to the rebar with the help of this crocodile clip. Okay, all I will show you, right? And next one, the positive terminal of the millivoltmeter is connected to half cell. So there will be two devices. So one is negative terminal which is connected with the millivoltmeter, and the other one is the positive terminal. So one terminal is to be connected directly to the embedded rebar, so which is which we are supposed to measure, and the next positive terminal is supposed to be connected to the millivoltmeter. Okay, so which is connected to the half cell. So next, the half cell shall be kept on the prepared saturated concrete surface. Okay, and potential measurements shall be recorded. So whatever the half cell shell we are using there, it should be kept on the prepared saturated in the sense, as I told you, concrete is supposed to be wet. Okay, that we called as a saturated concrete surface, and potential measurements can be recorded in your Canon meter. Okay, so that is how we go through the procedure. Okay, let me show you how it was observed. See, this is Menin meter, and they are using this half cell voltmeters, the negative which is connected to the rebar, and the other one is which is connected to the what is the next one, half cell, right? So see, you can see the electrode, so which is directly putting on the reinforced bar to measure the rate of corrosion. Okay, so this is the way how you can make use of the half cell potential measurement test, particularly in the columns. Not only that, even you can use in any kind of structural element. Okay, right. See, this is called a crocodile clip. Okay, understood. So this is a crocodile clip. So one, uh, this one millivoltmeter, which is connected directly to the steel rod. Okay, and the other one, the other end is going to be, so this is the negative one, the positive one which is connected to the Canon meter, and this is the one which is supposed to be connected to the concrete. Okay, which is a saturated concrete. Okay, so what is this? So this is the one, so which is the half cell one, right? So half cell is supposed to be connected to, so this is the half cell, and these are the voltmeters. Got it? So this is the negative voltmeter, and this is the positive voltmeter, and this is the half cell. Half cell is to be connected to the concrete surface, so which is already saturated, and voltmeter, one is connected to steel rod and the other one is connected to, you know, device. Okay. So let me show you a video how it was, uh, going to test practically. Here it is. So this is the standard test method for half cell potentials. Okay. Yeah. See, you can see how the rod was, brushed properly, right? So this is called a crocodile clip. So which was connected to the reinforced bar. So the negative clip to the voltmeter, and the other positive is to be connected to the main device. So your half cell is supposed to be connected directly to the surface of the concrete, which is already saturated. So that's why they are using sponge to make the surface wet. Okay. So you will get a contour kind of yeah, information to measure the rate of corrosion, right? So this is how the half cell potential meter, I mean measurement test is going to be performed on the real site. Okay. Yeah. Now let's go with the interpretation of half cell potential meter measurement, right? So here it is completely based on the laboratory experiments and extensive studies which are carried out the following interpretations for half cell potential measurement, which is going to be evolved. Okay. 1 second, guys. I think screen is not properly. Okay. So now you can see. So the what are the interpretations of half cell potential meter measurement? So here it is based on the laboratory experiment. So and extensively, these studies are going to be carried out to interpret the, half cell potential measurement, which is going to be evolved. So here, the more negative than around minus 350, millivolts, which is indicates the high probability of active corrosion. So there is a clear description given. I mean, table was given in the code on the starting for my presentation. I have showed you the codes which are required for these non-destructive tests. Okay, so there you can find the different, voltmeter values, so which indicates the rate of corrosion. So the more positive than around minus 200 millivolts indicates high probability of no corrosion, and reading between 200 millivolts to 350 millivolts, which indicates uncertainty of the corrosion. So these are the ranges which was given by the code. Okay, 350, less than 350, greater than 350, or in between 350, right? So that is how, if it is more than 350, so that's how the maximum rate of corrosion can be observed. Okay. So finally the remarks made from this presentation is, so half cell potential measurement is the, I mean, meter is the most appropriate instrument, so which is very widely used in investigating the structures to measure the livelihood or the status of the corrosion in reinforced concrete structures. Okay, nowadays a lot of people are using this to measure the rate of corrosion, especially structures which are at the coastal areas, and especially the structures like bridges, water related structures like bridges. Okay, so however, the existence of corrosion in rebar is further confirmed by high percentage of chloride and less pH value by other methods of testing also. As I told you, so we have to maintain a proper cover to decrease the rate of corrosion for the steel. Okay, so the corrosion, you know, is mainly due to with the high presence of chloride content and less pH values. So by other methods also you can able to assess what is the chloride content and what is the level of pH which is creating this corrosion to the steel. Okay, so that's how you can make use of this. And let me go with the other semi-partial destructive test. So as we discussed about non-destructive testings, destructive testings, and semi or partial destructive testings. So in which we are considering rebound hammer, ultrasonic pulse velocity, and what is that? Cover meter test are considered as a non-destructive test. Okay, including half cell potential meter test, right? So those four are comes under the non-destructive testing. And let me talk about the semi-partial destructive testing, so which is described as one is the load test, other one is a core test. Core test in the sense we are going to cut core samples in the structural elements. So by that we are disturbing the structure partially. So in that way, so which is gonna called as partial destructive testing of concrete. Okay. So one second, guys. Okay. Uh, yeah. So in this way, the semi-partial destructive testings are classified into two. So one is the extraction of cores and carrying out compression test, compression strength assessment, and the next one is the load test on structures. So these are the most common partial destructive testings which are used, in civil engineering, investigations, or in the forensic of civil engineering. So let me first talk about the core test. So here the extraction of cores and carrying out compression test. I think we all know how to perform the compression test on concrete tubes or concrete, prisms, or even the concrete cylinders, isn't it? So here we are going to cut the core samples within the concrete structure to assess the compression strength of that particular concrete. Okay, so by taking a core sample. So here core test is one of the most appropriate method to assess the strength and homogeneity of in situ concrete. Okay, so and most popular equipment used for core extractions are Hilti from Germany, and Eliform from UK, and Bosch. So we all much aware about this company called Bosch from Germany. Okay, so in India we are all using like Bosch, so which is majorly used to cut the core samples from the concrete elements. So here this equipment consists of diamond tipped core, so which is a barrel fitted to the electrically driven motor with water as a coolant. So because without the pumping water while cutting the core, it won't get properly, your sample won't have a proper surface when it is, removed from the element. So by that, you have to have a motor with water as a coolant. Okay, why? Because when you are drilling, so definitely heat will generate. So to control that heat, your motor is to be supplied with water as a coolant. Okay, that is how the device is going to work, and this is how the core samples are going to be taken from the concrete structure. So here the extraction of core samples from a reinforced concrete wall. So where they are want to assess the quality and homogeneity of the concrete, and even along with the strength also. Okay. So this is a practical example, and even you can see how the core samples are taken from the floor, from the RC slab, or even on the floor surfaces also. So even if you see majorly in on roadways, so that for the rigid pavements, so you might see a lot of core samples are taken from the pavements. So not only on rigid, even on the flexible pavements also, they take a lot of core samples to assess its homogeneity and its bearing capacity in terms of its strength. Okay. So the methods of testing here is appropriate diameter of core barrels will be fitted. So you can decide your own diameter. There will be 10 there will be around 100 samples, 150 samples of its dia. So because core cut always will be in a cylindrical shape. So by that you have to fix the diameter of the barrel will, okay, which is to be fitted to the core cutting equipment. Okay. So that's how the core samples are to be extracted from the reinforced concrete members. And the extracted cores will be trimmed properly and capped prior to the carrying out for the compression cylinder. As how you are testing your tube or a cylinder, in the same way you have to test the core samples by making your surfaces smooth. When the surfaces are not smooth, so definitely your load won't be distributed equally. Okay. So as you are applying a gradually apply load with some proper rate, so definitely your surfaces should be smooth to apply the load uniformly on the surface of the core sample. And the compression strength test will be carried out on the specimen as per the standard practice only. That's how you are performing in your labs for testing your cubes. So the same process you have to do it even for the core samples also. So, and however, prior to extraction of cores, so mapping of rebars will be carried out to avoid cutting of rebars during core samples. It is very, very, very important. When you are making use of this core test, so definitely you have to handle even the cover meter test along with you, or engineering drawings of that particular structure to address or to know where the where the rebar is located. Otherwise, what happens when you have it when you are going to take a core cut sample? So it may touch your reinforcement. Your reinforcement may get also broken while cutting the core sample. So by that you have to locate your rebar properly, and by avoiding that rebar location, so you have to take the only core samples. If the core sample dia where you are getting around around only 50 to 60 no issue. You can take that sample. Why? Because the compression strength of concrete is always assessed based on its cross-sectional area, isn't it? So load by cross-sectional area will definitely define its compression strength. So that's how you have to locate the rebar, making use of this cover meter test, and all. So that is very, very important. And finally, the core cut sample is going to be tested with the help of the CTM, so compression testing machine. Okay. So what are the factors affecting the core test results? So when you are testing this, so let me tell you the factors. Here, core cutting equipment and barrels shall be of good make and truly vertical. So when you are handling, so let me show you the picture. So here the person how he is handling, see, he is handling exactly 90 degrees to the surface of the wall. So by that your core will be in a proper length without any tampering. Okay. So it should exactly be horizontal. When you are doing for a vertical wall, it should be of, exactly 90 degrees even for the slab or a floor. So as it should be very good and truly vertical when you are making use at different applications. And trimming should be carried out with the diamond blades. So your surface of your core samples are supposed to be trimmed properly. Okay. So you have to use the diamond blades for that. So where you can do grinding the surfaces. and the leveling of capping should be very accurate on both top and bottom surfaces. Okay. So as I told you, your top and bottom surface of the core samples, it should be properly trimmed and it should be properly leveled. Then only your load will be applied uniformly on the concrete cube. And accuracy of compression testing mission and rate of loading should be as per the standards. As we all know, when you are going for compression strength, your equipment is to be calibrated and your equipment is to be properly maintained and the rate of loading is to be properly set. So then only you can able to perform its compression test. Okay. And let me show you the limitations of core test. So here cores cannot be extracted from slender members, so which is a very critical region. As we all know, if you take an example of a column, so it's a column is alone, it's a slender member. So slender members are subjected to buckling. So if you cut a core sample within the column, what happens? Your column may leads to buckle at that particular location straight away. So why? Because you are disturbing the column rigidity within the effective length of the column, right? So when you make a hole in the column, what happens? So that hole may create hinge in the column, so which allows rotation at that particular point. So in that way, you have to avoid the taking core samples in your slender members of your any structure. Even if your wall is very thin, so definitely you have to avoid taking core samples from that. And cores cannot be extracted from congested reinforcement regions also, because you won't get a proper diameter. Okay. So if the reinforcement is very congested, so definitely, so your core samples won't be get as per your required diameter. So by that, you have to avoid there as well. And there is a possibility of cutting rebars during core extraction. Exactly. So when you are not able to find out the exact location of the reinforcement bar, so definitely while you are using this core cutting equipment, it may cut even the rebar and it may disturb the it may disturb the structural element at that particular location. And limited number of samples can only be extracted. So why? Because for example, if you have a 10 meters by 10 meters column, so you can't take number of core samples within the 10 by 10 meters of a wall. You can't take number of core samples from the wall. Even in your column, if your column is having an enough diameter to take the core sample, but you can't take more samples within that. Okay, so there is a limitation. So the limitations was given by the code. So at what distances you have to maintain to take the core samples within the surface area provided. Okay, and these are the one. So that I will let you know at what distance you have to maintain to take the core samples. As per my knowledge concern, for the roadways, for rigid pavements and all, they try to maintain at least 5 meters of distance to take the core samples within the pavement. So if you take in a column, so definitely you can take only one core sample within the column. If it is a big RC wall, so I think the same distance you have to maintain like 5 meters of the distance to take the core samples. And finally, the remarks of the core test, which is the most appropriate method to determine the strength, quality, and texture. See, here the strength is very, very important. Quality is very, very important, and texture is very, very important. So with the strength, to assess the quality, to assess the texture of concrete, and even the homogeneity of the concrete, they are all going to be assessed with the help of this core test. So generally, the results of the test will be correlated with the results of other non-descriptive tests also. So here you can able to, for example, you are using rebound hammer test. From the rebound hammer test, you can get the compression strength of the concrete cube also, isn't it? So because I show you the rebound numbers, how to interpolate rebound numbers with the compression strength of the concrete, isn't it? So those values you can interpret, or you can correlate with the core test values which you are getting from the direct compression strength of the concrete core samples. Okay, so this is how you can correlate the results, like ultrasonic pulse velocity. Even in the first presentation I shared you the formula how to convert your ultrasonic pulse velocity values with respect to the compression strength of the concrete. So you can correlate those values with the direct compression strength of core samples. So where you can relate these values. Okay, so whether you are getting the same values for the same structural element or not, is there any huge difference? So that you can able to interpret. Okay, so this is how the core test is going to be carried out as a partial, destructive test of, concrete structure. And finally, coming to the last test, so which is the load test. Load test is also comes under the partial destructive testing of concrete. So here, the structure under loaded condition, you can see the typical view. So they are all sand bags. Okay, so every sandbag will be properly weighed, and the number of sandbags are going to be used to test the that particular element. Either it may be a slab, or it may be a deck, or it may be any element. If you want to know what is the carrying capacity of that particular structural element with respect to the design. So because maybe we designed that particular element for such a for example, for 1,000 kilonewton. So let's check practically whether it can able to sustain the load or not, for the maximum ultimate load or not. Okay, till it's yielding. So when they are doing this load test, let me tell you, they won't apply load beyond the yield point. Remember that. So what happens when you apply the load beyond the yield point? It goes into the plastic zone. So plastic zone, in the sense, the member goes into permanent deformation. So when it goes into permanent deformation and the structure can't be go for liability. So it can't be used for a real application. It can't be used for real service condition. Okay, then what they do is they will check only up to its yield point. So where the member will regain its original shape and size. So when the load is unloaded. Okay, so that is how they're gonna use this load test. So let's see the sorry guys, it's just loading. Yeah. So here you can see how the deflectometers locations are placed below the slab. So earlier picture which I showed you, so that is the load which was placed on the top of the slab. So below the slab, what they do, they are going to provide these deflectometers below the slab to measure the deflections of the slab with respect to the load. Okay. And one more thing, remember the load won't be applied all at a time. So they're gonna apply load gradually. So earlier, initially they may place 100 kilonewton and one bag by bag by bag by. That's how they are going to provide the load. For that only, they are going to measure the deflections continuously. Okay, for this load, what is the deflection? For this load, what is the deflection? That's how they are going to check the deflections for that particular respective loads. Okay, so this is how the deflector locations are going to be placed at the locators. Okay, this is the typical view. So these are the deflectometers. And you can find the deflectometers to measure deflections under load test. Okay, above the slab there will be loads, and below the slab there will be the deflectometers to measure the deflections of that particular structural element. Okay, so not only the sandbags, they may use even the red bricks also to for the load test. So this is the application of the test load. So they have provided number of bricks which are in a form of a uniformly distributed load on the slab, right? So you can make use of these also instead of a sandbag to go for the load test. And see how the girder. So this is called box girder, box pre-stressed girder. See, you can see the span. I think the span is almost more than 30 meters of span. So how this box girder was tested with the help of, this is the pre-stressed concrete box girder, which was tested with the help of a sandbag. So this is the load test. So below the load test, you can see a lot of cribs. So these are called staging. Staging under the staging which was provided with the help of a cribs. Okay. So these cribs are used to are going to be used as a staging when the box girder is going to be casted. Okay. So by that you can see how this staging was used to measure the deflections. So you can see the deflection, deflectometers here, deflectometer here, deflectometer here, and deflectometers even at the ends also, even at the supports. Understood? So supports also they provided the deflectometers. Why majorly at the center? Why? Because we all know deflection will be maximum at the simply supported member. So by that, the major deflectometers are going to be provided at center and within near to the center of the span. Okay, and you can see here, this is the box culvert. So even at the box culvert also, you can see how the deflectometers are placed below the box culvert. And I think above the box culvert, so this is the RCC slab. On the top of the slab, there will be loading. Okay, there will be sandbag loading. So this is how the inspectors will note down the reading of the from the deflectometer based on the load applied on the top of the slab. Okay, so this is the position of deflectometer for measurement of the deflection. And here is the position of axial for application of test load. So even you can able to, you are going to measure the deflections with respect to the load in terms of a vehicle, axial vehicle. Okay. So position of axial for application of test load. So here you can see this is the centroid of your section maybe. So here the load which was applied, this is the axial load. Okay. So I can consider this as one point load and this as another point load. So which is going to be considered as to measure the deflections of the slab. Okay. See how vehicles. So these are all heavy vehicles which are going to be used for the load. The position of truck and trailer with the defined loads. So these loads are all defined ones. Okay, so we can make use of these multi-tire vehicles under multi-axle vehicles under. So these multi-axle vehicles we can make use for the load test also. Instead of sandbags, instead of red bricks, so we can make use of these trucks also for the testing, deflections of the structure. And you can see the view of staging which is provided for Maha Mastakabhisheka. So it is one of the picture which where the lot of staging and they are testing the deflections of this particular not the deflection exactly. There's a staging which was provided to erect this statue. Okay. See how the load test was done even with the water water what we call tanks. See, right? So Syntex tanks use case you can able to go with the load test. Okay. So why? Because every Syntex tank is having the capacity to carry water up to this. So by that you can measure what is the weight of each Syntex tanks. So based on that, the total load can be assessed properly. Below that, there will be measurement of the deflections. Okay. See, there are a lot of methods to measure the deflections of particular structural element, and loadings can be done on in any way, like vehicle axle load stage, to like using of this water load, which is in the form of Syntex tanks, sandbags, bricks, and all. So here, the member strength cannot be adequately determined from the results of in situ material test. So load is which is going to be necessary. How you are going to compare these deflectometers results with the practical value with the theoretical values? As we already know, the maximum deflections value for your beams, isn't it? So you're going to compare these practical deflectometers results with the theoretical deflection values which you are attaining, and you can even compare with the deflection limits which was given by the code. Okay. So the physical demonstration of structural capacity of the member of the structure, so which will be more convincing than the theoretical calculations. Okay. So this is always there. So this is how you can able to compare and you can convince with the theoretical calculations with the practical values which you are attaining. Okay. And see the load test introduction. So here load testing shall be divided into two main categories. So one is in situ testing, so which is a generally non-destructive test. Otherwise, test on members removed from the structure. So generally that will be a destructive testing. So but majorly we go with a non-destructive testing. Why? Because we are all testing this load test for in situ slabs only. Okay. And in situ testing method. So here the load shall be performed only after the concrete is attaining its characteristic compression strength of 28 days old. Okay. And finally, the structure should be subjected to load equal to the full dead load of the structure plus 1.2 times the imposed load. So that is how they are going to consider the total load which is acting on the structure. So they will consider the full dead load of the structure along with 1.25 times the live load, 1.25 times the dead load, imposed load. Okay, that is very important. And finally, you can make use of water, you can make use of bricks, bags of cement, sandbags, steel weights are almost the materials which can be used for loading materials, so which is depending upon the availability. Okay, whatever the material you are available at site, you can make use of that material particularly to measure the deflections of that particular slab. You can make use them as like a load. Okay. So the measurement techniques which are associated with a simple in situ load test are usually very straightforward, and you can and they are restricted to demonstrate of deflection and possibly check widths. So they are, oh, sorry, crack widths. So they are possibly crack widths. So even you can able to, so for example, if you want to measure the maximum deflection of that particular member at its plastic zone within its maximum ultimate load, so you can go with descriptive testings also. So what is the maximum carrying capacity of that particular element to the ultimate load? So they are all comes under the destructive test anamata. So you can go with its crack and you can even identify what is the maximum crack width of that element. So the deflectometers will be utilized during load test to measure the deflections under loading conditions exactly. And loading will be carried out in 4 equal increments. Okay. So they won't go straight away with heavy load. There will be increment of loads with the 4 equal increments. First, they will place off 25% of the load, next 25% of the load, next 25. Like that, they will go with 100% of load in different 4 equal intervals of applications of the load. And finally, the maximum allowable deflections which are obtained from theoretical analysis, so will be considered to take appropriate decision during load test. And finally, the deflections immediately after every incremental loading will be recorded. Okay, these are all things to be followed, and the structure will be under load continuously for 24 hours, and the deflection under 24 hours loading will be recorded. So you can't take the deflection values whenever the load was applied. So you have to apply that load for a long period of like 24 hours. Then you can able to take the deflectometer readings. So whenever you apply the load, if you take reading, so that reading won't be the final. You have to wait till the load is constant on that particular structure for 24 hours of time. And you have to take the incremental loads to be recorded continuously for the time interval. Okay, 24 hours and for every, maybe for 15 to 20 minutes, you have to see the loading, you have to observe the load increments, and you have to observe the deflections for every time period. Okay. And see, you can see that the maximum deflection in mm showing during 24 hours under loading is less than 40. So definitely there will be span in meters, and diameter is overall depth of the section. So I think these maximum deflection limits you can able to observe from the code, and for long during 24 hours under loading, so which is going to be less than 40 or which is going to be considered as the effective span of the member. Okay, I think for these, instead of going through this value, you can go with the deflection limit which was there in the code. So otherwise, within 24 hours removal of imposed load, if the structure does not recover at least 75% of the deflection, the test may be repeated after the lapse of 72 hours. So this is very, very important statement. So you see, when you are unloading the load, so it has to regain its original deflection. If it is not regaining, if it is not recovering at least 75% of the deflection values, definitely you have to repeat the test after the lapse of 72 hours. Okay. So why? Because when it is not regaining its original deflection, so when your load is unloaded, so there is no point of taking those values as the final consideration. So in that point of view, you have to repeat the test and make sure. And if the recovery measured is again less than 80%, the structure is deemed to be unacceptable. Okay. So as if it is not recovering, so when the load is unloaded, so definitely you have to demir the structure, and the structure is not at all acceptable for the service. Okay. So these are the important points have to be considered. So in situ load tests are most likely to be needed in the following circumstances. So these in situ tests are very, very important, Amma. So let me show you where these are very, very important in the real livelihood of the construction activities. So here, deterioration of the structures due to material degradation or physical damage structures which are substandard due to quality of design or construction. So to assess the quality of construction, to assess the construction standards or the physical damage structures, so these are all very important where you have to go with the in situ test. And the non-standard design methods which may cause the designer, building authorities or other parties to require proof of the concept used. Okay, so at this point also these in situ tests are going to be needed at that particular circumstances where the non-standard design methods follow or which may cause the designer or building authorities or other parties which are required the proof of the concept used. So what they used, how it is going to deflect in a practical way To assess all these, definitely you need this in situ load test. And change in occupancy or structural modifications which may increase loading. Say, for example, even in your residential buildings. So sometimes you constructed your residential building for G+2. But in future, if you want to increase the carrying capacity, if you want to increase it to multiple floors like G+3, G+4, you can't just go like that. You have to go with a lot of institute testings, whether your column is having a proper carrying capacity to go for the further 2 floors or not, and your slab is capable of carrying the loads or not. Everything you have to assess. Okay, so without understanding that capability, or sometimes if you constructed your or any commercial building or any industry or any structure for particular occupancy, but in future the occupancy may vary. Okay, now it is for residential. In future, it may be converted to commercial, and future it may be converted to industrial. So definitely the loads will change to every different occupancy. So when it is going changed, so definitely the structure modification is to be happen. Otherwise, it can't able to carry the load, because the residential loading is different, commercial loading is different, industrial loading is different, vehicular loading is different. So like that, based on the occupancy, say even for the bridges also, if you designed for the bridge for for a particular vehicles. In future, the heavy vehicles, if they want to transport on that, if they want to move on that, so will it be accessible? Will it be allowable? No. So you have to check what is the carrying capacity, or what is the strength of that particular structure. And if you want to increase the, its ability to resist the loads, so you have to do some modifications. So that modifications you can go with the kind of retrofitting methods. So you can enhance its strength by adding a few more steel into the columns or few more steel into the decks, and you can increase the sizes. So by that, maybe it may increase its carrying capacity. Okay, so that you have to go through based on the occupancy. In future, is there any changes in the structure? And finally, the proof of performance following major repairs, so which may be politically necessary in the case of public structure. So that is also very, very important. So performance following major repairs like rehabilitation, retrofitting of the structures. So if you want to go for RRS, so definitely these in situ testings should be there with you. Then only you can go with the retrofitting or rehabilitation of the structure. Okay. So for even doing this repair works also, these in situ tests are going to be useful, in a very good way. So like coming to the destructive test. So because till now we discussed about a non-destructive test, which are like rebound hammer, ultrasonic pulse velocity, cover meter, and half cell potentiometer. And the non-destructive, partial destructive test, like core test and load test. And finally, let's discuss a few things about the destructive testings. So here, destructive testings will be carried out on full scale. So for RCC members or elements up to their failure to evaluate their behavior. Okay. And finally, the destructive test would be conducted by applied load through jacks in a self-strained frame, or by placing appropriate load physically on the RCC members. And the necessary instrumentation will be deployed to measure the various aspects like deflections, strains of the members and all. Okay, that is how you can make use of the deflectometers, destructive methods. So here you can see the full scale load on a parabolic shell roof elements, how they are placed on this roof. So here the roof is something like a parabolic shape, even the loading also in terms of the parabolic shape. Okay, so these are all curved slabs, right? And finally, you can see how the slab was failed due to the load which was applied beyond its ultimate carrying capacity. So beyond its ultimate load, whenever you apply on the structure, so definitely structure will fail. This all comes under the destructive test. Okay, so because when the destructive test was used, because if you want to assess or analyze the structure to see what is its maximum carrying capacity, so then definitely you have to go with the destructive test. So here you can apply the load beyond its carrying capacity and beyond its collapse load. So here you can see the view of failure of parabolic shell roof element during load test. Clear? So, and you can see even the deflectometers which was placed laterally to the slab, laterally to this deck. Okay. So Alaga, this is how you can make use of this destructive test. Okay. So right, thank you so much, guys, for giving me this opportunity to share this information to you. So because there are a lot of online sources which we took, and one of my friend called Santosh, who shared a few information on these aspects, and that is how I'm going to share this information to you guys. So any doubts regarding these non-destructive tests related to codes or related to any kind of technical things, please feel free to ask me. And finally, I request you to please subscribe my channel and share this information to all civil engineering fraternities to make understanding or to have a better understanding about non-destructive tests. Okay, which are there like which are going to be used in the real construction activities, right? So in the meantime, definitely I'm going to share you further more information on this if the information available, with me. So definitely this is how I'm gonna share you a lot of knowledge, guys. So thank you so much again for giving me this place to interact with you and share this information to you guys. Right? Thank you.